Good morning. I'm Reverend Carolyn Paterno, and I am coming to you prior to the formal start of our service. The service that we are about to enter into together was recorded earlier this week before Thursday's horrific events that unfolded in Afghanistan. I know that all of us are watching closely with hearts pounding, worried for the Afghani people as well as for others who are in that country, including American military personnel. We are devastated by the death and destruction and the terror that was unleashed this past week. And we open our hearts in prayer and hopefully for finally a peaceful end to what has been an endless war. We gather up this morning holding close the families that have been most directly impacted by this violence, and we hope for a better day and ways of offering our own support and help in this time. I know that Aaliyah and Ellen, like me, have likely heard from many of you just desperately wondering what we can do. And for this morning, what we can do is to open our hearts in prayer and in meditation and believe in some part of our souls that these things matter. I join you in heartbreak and concern, and I join you also momentarily as we begin this service together, which fittingly is a service about despair. Thank you for being here, and know that we are together in this sorrow. Amen. Good morning, friends. Good morning. We are so happy to be gathered up once again to celebrate and ground ourselves, preparing for a new day. I am Reverend Carolyn Paterno. I serve All Souls Unitarian Universalist Congregation in New London, Connecticut, and I have the pure joy of welcoming this morning Reverend Ellen Spiro, who serves First Parish Unitarian Church of Chelmsford, Massachusetts, and Reverend Aaliyah Kemmler, the minister of First Parish Church in Groton, Massachusetts. Dear and beloved friends of mine both. We welcome the members of both of those congregations and All Souls New London and all of those who gather from near and far this morning. This morning, Jesse Edwards is our technical director who week after week knits our services together with grace. Tammy Barber enhances the service this morning with visuals that make our hearts rise up. Steve Zaki, Sean McCann, and Gary Elliott are today's musicians, with guests coming in to offer their musical gifts as well. You are welcome here this morning. I invite you to take a deep breath in as we begin and focus in on the wisdom and beauty of Adrienne Rich, who wrote, "What would it mean to live in a city whose people were changing each other's despair into hope? You yourself must change it. It'd feel like to know your country was changing. You yourself must change it. Though your life felt arduous, new, unmapped, and strange, what would it mean to stand on the first page of the end of despair?" Welcome this morning. You are joyfully called to worship. We'll begin by joining our voices in song. I invite you to join me in singing "'Tis a Gift to Be Simple."
Tis a gift to be simple, tis a gift to be free, tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in a place just right, to be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed to tremble, but we how delight till by turning we come round right.
Thank you so much for that opening music. On January 20th of this year, a young woman, Amanda Gorman, stood before our nation at the inauguration of the president and read the poem, "The Hill We Climb." Her name is Amanda Gorman. And for our chalice lighting today, I would like to read the last stanza of her poem. When the day comes, we step out of the shade of flame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is always light. If only we are brave enough to see it, if only we are brave enough to be it. I light our chalice this morning for all of us gathered together here so that we may be brave together in choosing hope over despair.
Good morning, everyone. It is so good to have our congregations together again. The reading we chose for this morning is called "Blessing for When the World is Ending" by the poet and artist and beautiful soul, Jan Richardson. And this is from her book of blessings called "Circle of Grace." She writes, "Look, the world is always ending somewhere. Somewhere the sun has come crashing down. Somewhere it has gone completely dark. Somewhere it has ended with the gun, the knife, the fist. Somewhere it has ended with the slammed door, the shattered hope. Somewhere it has ended with the utter quiet that follows the news from the phone, the television, the hospital room. Somewhere it has ended with a tenderness that will break your heart.
But listen, this blessing means to be anything but morose. It has not come to cause despair. It is simply here because there is nothing a blessing is better suited for than an ending. Nothing that cries out more for a blessing than when a world is falling apart. This blessing will not fix you, will not mend you, will not give you false comfort. It will not talk to you about one door opening while another closes. It will simply sit itself beside you among the shards and gently turn your face toward the direction from which the light will come, gathering itself about you, as the world begins again.
So this is our fourth. 3 ministers walk into a Deli service. To get ready for this one, Carolyn, Ellen, and I were talking about the themes of the services we've already led together. The first service was just a few weeks into the pandemic when we were all still reeling. And it was about resilience and love. We talked about how much we love each other and how much we love the congregations we serve, and how the only way we were going to get through this was together, which was kind of the only thing we knew at that moment. And of course, it makes perfect sense that we reached out for each other so quickly. And we realized how much we wanted you, our congregations, to know each other too. Maybe even to learn to reach out to one another. The second service was about wonder. Wonder in the sense of curiosity and openness and the capacity to be surprised by someone else's story. We talked about how being willing to wonder about someone is the first step toward love, especially for those people who feel hard to understand, hard to feel any tenderness for. Our third service was about God and what each of us believes about the nature of God, something that in all of the years of all of the conversations we have had, we had not talked enough about together. And we all three shared our belief that if God has a name, that name is something like boundless, infinite, endless compassion. So today, we're talking about turn the page on despair. Now, back in May, when we chose this theme, we thought it would be the right question for this point in the pandemic. How do we move to a new page? Well, as you all well know, we are in a different place now than where we thought we would be.
In mid-July, just before I went on vacation, I had a plan. We had a plan. Steve, our music director, and Dave and Neil, our worship tech volunteers extraordinaire, we met in person in the sanctuary to plan how we would lead worship in the fall. Some people would attend online from home, but we thought most would attend in person. Again, no masks required. We would be back together, not in the way we were before COVID, but it was a start. I went off to Vermont for 2 weeks, relieved I had a plan for when I got back. I felt an ease, a freeing joy that I hadn't felt in over a year. And then Delta.
There's an old Yiddish proverb. We plan, God laughs. Not that I believe in a God who laughs at us when things go awry. I don't. But if it were true, God would be clutching their stomach with tears rolling down their face right about now. Last year, our faithful and long-suffering board of trustees here made the most beautiful color-coded chart with all different variables and virus levels and phases. And it is completely and utterly irrelevant. We are in uncharted terrain now. We are making the math as we go.
And I am having lunch with a friend I haven't seen since before the shutdown. I asked the impossible question, how are you? His response begins with this. He says, I've said the word pivot more in the past year than I have in my entire life. We are living the pivot life. Still, Ellen, Leah, and I agreed that perhaps more than ever, Adrienne Rich's question called to us in this time. Though your life felt arduous, new and unmapped and strange, what would it mean to stand on the first page of the end of despair? Remember when some of us, at least, did have that feeling that we were standing on that lovely precipice. Remember May and June, the first part of July? There we were on a precipice that did not feel like our bellies were in our throats, the terrifying dip of the roller coaster. Rather, we felt butterflies in our bellies. We dared to revel at the precipice where the page would surely be turning. Ellen and Aaliyah and I took out our calendars and we counted the days. May 13th would be the first day that the three of us would all be fully vaccinated and past the 2-week waiting period. So on May 13th, we made our way to the Deli. From our first hugs and pickles being set down on the table, to the armloads of blintzes, matzo ball soup, and rugula to take home. Our long-awaited reunion was glorious. We thought about all of you. May and June and early July were apparently, though, the first page of the end of despair. For a brief and lovely moment, we lived there, the end of despair, and now we must absorb this truth. There will be many pages between now and the end of the pandemic. Unless we think otherwise, there will be despair long after the wise messengers of public health declare that the worst of it is over. To bend a phrase, despair and grief will always be with us. And so here we are. August brings a different story, and so will September, and so will October, and so will, and on and on. In short, blech. And so how do we then integrate despair? Is it possible for despair to be subsumed by blessing in the way that the poet proposes? Because, as she said, there is nothing that cries out more for a blessing than when the world is falling apart.
Blessing is always there, even when the world is falling apart. Even when despair tries to cloak and suffocate. If I've learned anything over this pandemic, or in my 2 decades of ministry, it's this. Blessing is always present because we make it incarnate. We give it flesh and blood and breath. That is one of the core purposes of our faith communities, to embody blessing for one another, to embody it for the world, to carry on the blessings of our ancestors, and to nurture blessing for our children and our children's children. It's always there, but we've got to put it on. At First Parish, we have a core team of knitters and crocheters who make prayer shawls, which we then label and bless, and we put them in our pews for people to take as they need, for themselves or others they know. If you were in our sanctuary now, you would see what I see, prayer shawls on half the pews. We have sent boxes of them to the Unitarian Universalist congregation in Knoxville, Tennessee, after the shooting there, to Newtown, Connecticut, to the Unitarian Universalist congregation in Orlando, Florida, after the Pulse nightclub shooting. Josh, my husband, recently gave one to a colleague who lost his wife of 40 years to cancer. He told Josh that he has put the shawl on her chair and talks to her about how much he misses her. We embody blessing. We take it in our hands and whisper our hopes and prayers and healing energies, and we pass it on to the folks who need it, whether we know them or not, shawl by shawl, blessing by blessing.
In times of great trouble, we need to go back to what we know. We need to go back to the few things we most deeply believe are true. Kindness matters, and we can do hard things. And being in religious community helps us to do the hard things. It helps us to figure out what love looks like or feels like or sounds like on any given day. To figure out where love resides, and then to place ourselves there together. One of the things I know for sure is that we are saved by each other over and over again. The members of the congregation I serve save me weekly. They remind me of who we are and what we believe in. Sometimes they quote me right back to myself, saying things like, well, some minister I know reminded me that we have to be gentle with ourselves right now because we are 18 months into a global pandemic that we thought was ending. It helps, although I pretend not to know what minister they're possibly quoting. In the midst of my feeling overwhelmed by all the hard choices we now face, a member of the congregation wrote to me to remind me that feeling overwhelmed together is definitely easier. We'll face it all together, she said. Church is a school for gratitude, compassion, and generosity. It is where we get to practice these things and be alongside others who are trying to learn and practice them too. Right in the middle of life's chaos and mess and sorrow, church is where we choose to make the blessing real. As Ellen says, to embody the blessing. Though your life felt arduous, new, and unmapped and strange, what would it mean to stand on the first page of the end of despair?
It takes discipline and commitment to look beyond despair, to embody blessing, to imagine that what seems impossible is not only possible, but the best way forward, and to embody that. We are tempted by so many reasons to say no. What if we were to trust blessing that way, to place our hope in it, love our fellow human beings, love the earth and all creation, imagine a world healed and whole? We may never see it in our lifetimes, but it has absolutely no chance of coming into being if we stay in despair. And this is perhaps the important part, that we can't do it alone. It requires this. It requires this gathering of generous, thoughtful, compassionate people, creating welcoming communities and living lives grounded in the ethics of love and justice. I know that I could not have gotten this far through this pandemic without you, without the amazing congregation I serve, without Aaliyah and Carolyn and your congregations. And when we have to pivot yet again, because I know we will, I know where to turn. Conversely, despair isolates and separates us from one another and turns us inward and on each other. It thrives on fear and worse, on apathy. Despair cannot be the primary color that illuminates the memory of this time.
A poet in my congregation, Barbara Rich, asked, "What do we want to be able to tell the children about this time?" She says it is our responsibility, but also our blessing, to find a way, to find our way through this in a way that will help the children live. She says that in order to tell them the story of how we came through, we have to live that story moment by moment, hour by hour, day by day. The story of how we survived with our hearts intact. How we came through the isolation and loneliness and empty sanctuaries, and then returned to the world with the loaves of bread we learned how to bake, or the crooked shawls we learned how to knit, or the fistfuls of parsley we grew on our windowsills, with our new songs. It is a story of resilience, a story of love, a story of wonder being the first step toward that love. It is a story of spiritual deepening, of reaching toward each other in all the ways we can reach across screens and distance, to hold each other steady until we can hug again and break bread again and sing together. Together, we'll help each other remember that this story is still unfolding.
And it unfolds in the canopy of trees, in which the poet asks, though our lives feel arduous, new and unmapped and strange, what does it mean to stand on the first place and the end of despair? So here on this precipice, this morning, may we turn the pages of despair as a way of blessing. A blessing that, in the words of the poet, sits itself beside you among the shards and gently turns your face toward the direction from which the light will come, gathering itself about you as the world begins again. Amen. And blessed be.
So our musical meditation this morning is the song I Am Open by Holly Near. This is one we sing often in Groton, especially on those Sunday mornings when something hard and terrible has happened or it feels like the world is falling apart. The youth choir taught it to us, and the sound of their sweet, strong voices, reminding us that holding on to hope is the way we honor those who came before us, is the sound I carry with me.
And I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. There is hurt in my family, and there is sorrow in my town. There is panic all across the nation, and there is wailing the whole world round. But I am open, yes, and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. May the children see more clearly, and may the elders be more wise. May the winds of change caress us, even though they burn our eyes. I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. Give me a mighty oak to hold my confusion, and give me a desert to hold my fears. Give me a sunset to hold my wonder. Give me an ocean to hold my tears. I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change.
Thank you, Sean and Andrew, all of those who brought us that beautiful rendition of I Am Open. For to be hopeless would feel so strange. We carry that in our hearts. We carry that in our hearts as we transition into the time when we look to each other to witness each other's lives, our joy, our sorrow, both. To do so is to deepen our commitment to each other, to community, to the faith we all share. You are invited to write in the YouTube chat the joy and sorrow that you would like to have witnessed this morning. Elia and Ellen and I will light candles of intention to give you time to do so, and then we will gather up back together for prayer. I invite you to share your joy and sorrow. Amen. There are two sorrows to share this morning from our congregations. From the Groton congregation, we hold in our hearts and prayers and good thoughts Karen A., who is now back in the hospital. And from New London, Maria and Rob ask their friend Paul Hammer, who died recently. May he rest in peace and assured. And for all that we are witnessing in the chat, we hold each and every joy and sorrow tenderly this morning. I invite you into a spirit of communion, of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life and of love, in all the ways that you are known and named. We gather to ready ourselves to turn the first page of despair. We gather to anchor ourselves for the week ahead and the joy and sorrow each day will certainly bring. May the spirit of community, one of welcome, caring, and blessing, prepare us to do hard things, leading with wonder and with love. Spirit of life, cool our anger, calm our anxiety, buoy our joy, and lead us to a sense of peace in these complex times. Despite everything, may we hear the music of our lives and sing along with gusto. We give thanks for this new day to life, and together we say, Amen. Amen. We will close as we always do by joining our voices in song. We will join at this time Steve Zaki and Reverend Justine Sullivan in singing the hymn, Comfort Me.
Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Sing with me, 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 oh my soul. Sing with me, 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 oh my soul. Pray with me, pray with me, pray with me, oh my soul. Pray with me, pray with me, pray with me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul.
My deepest gratitude to Steve and Justine for that Comfort Me. I know it is one that members of First Parish in Chelmsford love to hear over and over and over again. It's now time for us to join in extinguishing our chalices. And I offer these words. Our service has ended, but our work is not yet done. May our spirits be renewed and our purpose resolved as we meet the challenges of the week. Our chalice flame is extinguished until once again ignited by the strength of our communion. And now, as we go forth from this service, may the truth that sets us free and the hope that never dies and the love that casts out fear be with us now until the day spring breaks and the shadows flee away.
Go in peace, friends. Be a blessing to this world.
I share the words of Representative John Lewis, now of blessed memory, who said, "Do not get lost in a sea of despair. Walk with the wind, siblings, and let the spirit of peace and the power of everlasting love be your guide." Go in peace. Amen. 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 We are so lucky to have been able to do this 4 times. Thank you so much to Ellen and Aaliyah. Thank you so much. They're couple of announcements foremost. We so appreciate your financial support through this past 18 months. Thank you so much. The donation links are in the YouTube description, and we thank you in advance for your generosity. For All Souls, we are going to be worshiping with the Manchester congregation live on Zoom next week. We'll get you the links. And of course, you are all welcome to join in coffee hour. We hope you will come by for fellowship and connection. The link will be posted in the YouTube chat. But first, we have a postlude from Gary Elliott, one of the musicians from All Souls. Thank you again for being here. Go in peace.